Defense is an integral part of a sports program, and the same can be said about cybersecurity when it comes to being ready for threats that may be coming towards sports franchises. It's just like any other company out there. Brian Murphy is the CEO and founder of security provider ReliaQuest. Brian, thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks for having us, Karen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you talk about sports organizations, pro teams specifically, talk a little bit about the security concerns that they have that are similar just to what every other company has, and also some things that set them apart.
Sure. So, professional sports or sports teams, college athletics, any sports organization is really no different than a large commercial enterprise. They have valuable assets. They've got to protect. There's a large volume of money coming in out of the organization. They have intellectual property and strategy documents that they want to protect. It's a little different with professional sports organizations. Is there's just a lot of different layers that go into protecting those assets and that intellectual property. So we just think of, the NFL or the NBA or NHL, but there's really layers of what is the actual association protecting, what is the specific team protecting, and then what about the arena where they play? What's the cyber accountability there? What are they protecting for the fan experience and the in-game experience? Plus the ticket brokers and all the worlds that collide to create this massive industry of something that causes us to all sit around our TVs and pile in stadiums to see the outcome of a game. So there's a lot of things that can happen along the way that can change that experience and potentially damage the brand, depending on what happens.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts here, Brian. I know specifically you guys partner with the Tampa Bay Lightning, the NHL team there in Tampa. So, talk a little bit about specifically with individuals too, because, you were talking about the team as a whole, but a lot of these guys and gals on these professional teams, they have their own identity to protect and things like that.
They do. I mean, the athletes that play these sports, whether it's amateur or professional athletes, they are their own brand. They have their own, they're their own asset in a lot of ways. And their activity on social media, their activity with sponsors, their engagement on and off whatever field of play they play matter, and it's important to protect those brands and protect those assets um, is a subset of the overall brand of whatever team that they play on. So there are definitely a lot of layers in the equation.
And do you think when we talk about cybersecurity threats, I mean these professional sports teams, I mean they really are a target, or they can be. They're very visible.
Extremely visible. It is a very competitive field. There's a lot of flow of money, not just from ticket sales and sponsorship sales in the venues or player contracts, but there's so many ancillary organizations and service. There's the gambling, online gambling. There's the just the betting industry as a whole. There are all of the different brands that make investments from an advertising and marketing perspective, the social media, all the news, talk radio. I mean, just think about the amount of time and hours spent every day talking about sports and talking about whether it's an athlete or a specific play or predicting what's going to come in the future. It is such a major industry worldwide.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the Vegas impact, for instance, how much that plays into pro sports. So I guess the million dollar question is, and we talk about cybersecurity with so many industries every day here on, TechRepublic and ZDNet and CNET, and what companies can do. So specifically with pro sports, what is it that they can do to best protect themselves?
I think it's like all security. When you think of the problem as a whole, it can be a little daunting, and we can start to, man, how are we ever going to do this? But I think you start and you do the simple things well. First, it's understanding what the risks are and looking at the possible scenarios that could happen, or what are the assets or the intellectual property that we want to protect and why. There's an education component, but then we want to set up automations and opportunities for us to build some advanced correlations and some advanced monitoring and some more predictive intelligence to start to give us a heads up or a more proactive warning when something could be behaving in a bad way. But I think in general, it's understanding what your assets are, understanding what's important, and then starting to do the work the day in and day out to slowly evolve your environment. And really, we're talking about increasing visibility, being able to be more predictive and see things faster.
And from your perspective, Brian, you've been in this for a while now and working with pro sports teams and organizations. Do you see that that the individuals that are making decisions, are they taking this more seriously now? Can you see that they're getting more concerned as they're realizing just how scary this can all be?
Absolutely. From the CEOs of the organizations to the general managers to the coaches, and to the players. There's no shortage of awareness around both amateur and professional sports organizations around the importance of protecting their brand, staying safe from a cybersecurity perspective, understanding who they're working with on a day-to-day basis, and starting to think about the different layers of what are their dependencies, what other vendors are they working with, and how are they protecting their environments. And so it is that conversation has evolved over time, and it is definitely on top of mind from the highest levels of these organizations.
Yeah, definitely needs to be. That's for sure. Um, Brian Murphy here with ReliaQuest. We certainly appreciate you being with us today and your insight on this.
Hey, thank you so much for your time, Karen. Really appreciate it.
Most certainly. And you can find out more about this story here on Tech Republic and ZDNet. Thanks so much for watching.